We've got to free the space for my iPad here. All right. Okay.
Good?
Whenever you're ready, Maggie.
Hello, my name is Maggie Graham. Welcome to my senior project presentation. For my senior project, I chose to ask the question of what are the essential steps to organizing and hosting a pickleball tournament to raise money for the tennis team. Throughout my presentation, I will speak about why I chose this project all the way through to what the successes and the failures were. I will also speak about my timeline beginning in October with my proposal all the way through to April with my final details and the actual day of the tournament. I chose to do this project because it was an opportunity to give back to the tennis program. I have been a part of this program since 8th grade, and when I look back on the memories and the fun times I've had, having this opportunity to give back to this program, I just know my high school experience would not be the same without it, and it just has made me who I am. My mentor was Greg Panciaco. Mr. Panciaco has been my teacher and my coach. He taught me for 2 years in Spanish, and he coached me for a total of 4 seasons between soccer and tennis. I wanted him to be my mentor, and I even asked him at the end of my junior year if he would do it. He said yes, I would just have to remind him, which is a very cheeky thing. My goals for my project were simple. I wanted to raise money for the program, a decent amount, and I wanted to create a fun event for all the participants, possibly even encouraging someone else to take on this project and create an annual tradition. After my proposal, I began my research. I researched the benefits of athletics, products that my program could purchase, and all the necessary materials for hosting a pickleball tournament. I gathered the information I would need, and then I began to gather those materials. My original decision was to do a tennis tournament. However, looking at what we had for courts, 7 pickleball courts was going to be more productive than 3 tennis courts. My first step was to reserve the courts. I am really lucky enough to have a close connection to the Millis Recreation Department. I was able to text Chris Fogarty and get permission to use the courts. She allowed me to use whenever I wanted to, so that was a big help for me. While doing my research, I looked up different things like purchasing pickleball paddles that my participants could use because I knew that not all of them would have them. Throughout this presentation and talking about it, Mr. Dickey, when I was talking to him, gave the idea of possibly using the money that I would raise to purchase paddles in advance, and then I could donate those paddles back to the school into the gym program. I then discovered through my classmates that the physical education department had paddles that I could use, and with Mr. Kendrick and Mr. Fallon's permission, I was able to borrow them. I also, in advance, purchased pickleballs through Amazon. The next step I had was to create or find a system that could track all the signups. I used the website jotform.com. It was really simple and free. I just entered the questions I wanted to use and it created the form for me. I chose to ask the questions and that's all I had to do. I created a shareable link and a QR code that I was able to attach to all my promotional things like my flyers. Questions I included in the jot form were the basics, name, number, email. I also included questions such as, have you played before, or do you have paddles? And these questions allowed me to gauge the skill level of the participants that were going to be participating and how many paddles I would need to get in advance. Every single player who signed up had played in advance in some way. This was extremely helpful for me because I myself did not know the game well. Part of my own research was figuring out how to play. I originally made signups just available to Millis High School students and staff, and I included them flyers around the school. I asked them to include my information in the morning announcements. Approximately a week before my tournament, I only had 4 teams signed up, and it's at that point that I decided to make my tournament public in hopes to reach the large pickleball population in town. I posted on my personal social media platforms as well as multiple Facebook groups, including Millis Public Forum. After that, I began to receive many signups and emails asking questions and showing interest in participating. Many questions I was receiving brought insight into things that I had forgotten to do. I decided to have a loser's bracket so that people could play more than one game. I also decided to have a rain date in case of bad weather. A common question was, do I accept cash? I was originally only going to do Venmo and to prepare for in advance advance, make sure everyone was paying, but I decided to also accept cash on the day of the tournament. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the world, and it definitely shows here in the males population. It is widely loved, and there's many leagues. Chris Fogarty reached out to one of her pickleball contacts, and he was able to share my tournament information with his league, which brought a lot of signups to it, and a large population of the people who had participated were through that email. After someone signed up, I would send an email with a brief overview of how it would work, what materials they would need. I also attached videos of how to play in case they didn't know. And the day before my tournament, I sent an email explaining how things would go from check-in on, including what time check-in was, how long I think the tournament would last, and information like that. This right here, this shows, I sent a survey at the end of my presentation, at the end of my project, and I asked what they thought, different questions like how they heard about my tournament, and this shows that word of mouth was the biggest one, which for me is a big success because it means people were talking about my tournament in advance, so 60%, even though the other things definitely helped as well. The night before my tournament, I had 16 teams signed up. I had to then create a bracket system. I used brackethq.com, which was another free site for me to use. All I had to do was enter the 16 team names, and it created a bracket for me. It also created a loser's bracket. I then printed out these because I knew by the tennis courts there would be reception, and I printed multiple copies anticipating that there would be mistakes and changes that would need to be made the next day, which there definitely was. The final days before my tournament, I went shopping to purchase the final necessary materials. I purchased snacks and drinks to keep the participants fueled. I made signs, and I made sure I had everything I would possibly need, from tables to trash bags. I also brought cornhole boards with me to the tournament to keep other people, if they aren't playing, so they didn't have things to do. But I ended up not needing them because the tournament stayed flowing and stayed moving. The morning of my tournament, I loaded up the car, and I was actually pleasantly surprised when I was loading my car by how beautiful it was out. I do live on a hill, so the wind was kind of blocked, because when I got down to the courts, I discovered that it was actually very windy and very cold, and I hoped that it would get better throughout the day and that the wind would maybe go away, but that stayed a constant struggle throughout the day, but no one really complained about it besides me. People of all different skill levels participated, participants of all ages. We had high school students, all of them had learned in gym class how to play in the pickleball unit, which they all loved it. Special thanks to some of my good friends, Leah and Catherine. They were supporting me from the beginning with how to get this set up and get the word out to all their friends. I ended up having 18 participating teams on the day of. So 2 teams did add on the day of, which created a struggle with how to work into the bracket system. I wasn't quite sure how to do it, but after I figured it out, and after there was some maneuvering and some people got to skip around, everyone was able to play and everyone had a good time, and it went smoothly from there. The winners of my tournament were Chris and Sawyer. They're a father and son duo. For their prizes, we have these pickleball trophies. Chris Fogarty, again, she helps me out. She had these trophies. They just said pickleball champions on it, but it had a different date. My dad was able to pull that date off, and my mom, with her cricket machine, added first place to them. So that cricket machine was a very, very good thing, because it also helped with the other prizes, which was a pickleball bag. We included water bottles, massage roller, different snacks and gum and different things. Something just small, but we didn't actually take any proceeds out of it. We just considered it a donation from ourselves. So that was a fun thing, and they were really surprised when they got these prizes because they weren't expecting them. They were just expecting just to have the title of winner, but having these prizes, they really made them happy. In the conclusion of my tournament, between the $20 team entry fee and the other donations, I raised $540. I researched different things that could possibly be purchased, from a tennis ball machine, which was too expensive, to visors, which there was issues with who would keep them, would they be passed down to future team members. to tennis court windscreens. The windscreens came with the biggest issues: installation, cost, fee. And Mr. Ingram brought up a point. He doesn't like coaching with them there because he can't see what he needs to see, which is all of us at the same time. I ended up just donating a check to the program, and this helps because we can continue to grow those funds, especially if someone picks up this project, so we can eventually get to the point where we can purchase a new tennis ball machine, because the one we have is ancient, and Mr. Ingram says that he used it when he was in high school. Overall, I believe my project was a success. I raised $540 for the tennis program. 100% of the participants said they had fun, and many people said they would change nothing. On top of people saying they would change nothing, there were some things that people would change. One thing was they recommended that I have a whiteboard up there so they could see when they would play next. They also recommended a level tournament so that the different competitors at different levels wouldn't cream the other people. And they also recommended, instead of doing a loser's bracket, doing a double elimination, which I wasn't aware there was a difference, but that incited me into different things. Other obstacles was the weather, which there's not much I can do about it, but possibly pushing it back. I could have worked in how to account for additional teams better originally, and the lack of original signups, I would probably start promoting earlier to get more people. I would like to thank Chris Fogarty for all her help reserving and promoting what I needed. I'd like to thank Mr. Panciaco for all his support. I'd like to thank Mr. Kendrick and Mr. Fallon for lending me the supplies and teaching all the high school players who played how to play. And I'd like to thank my parents, Shannon and Bob, for supporting me in this project and throughout my entire high school career. And I'd like to thank all of the participants who competed to make this event possible.